All right, today we're diving into one of the strangest, most bizarre, just truly amateurish invasion attempts you'll ever hear about. This is the story of Operation Gideon, a failed raid on Venezuela that got stuck with the, let's be honest, perfect nickname, the Bay of Piglets.
I mean, it sounds like the plot of a really bad action movie, right? But it actually happened. Two decorated American Special Forces veterans paraded on Venezuelan state TV after being captured in what was supposed to be this lightning raid to topple a government. So the question is, how on earth did it come to this? Let's unravel this unbelievable story.
So on paper, Operation Gideon had a clear goal. A small force of Venezuelan defectors, led by an American private military contractor, was going to land on the coast, snatch President Nicolás Maduro, and fly him out of the country. You know, a classic decapitation strike. But as you're about to see, the reality was anything but classic.
Okay, to really get why this thing failed so spectacularly, we have to start with the two guys who cooked it up. Their partnership was, to put it mildly, unconventional. And frankly, it's the first major clue as to why this whole thing was pretty much doomed from the very start.
So, who were the architects of this plot? Well, on one side, you have Jordan Goudreau. He's an American ex-Green Beret who founded a private security firm called Silvercorp USA. And for him, the chaos in Venezuela looked like a business opportunity. On the other side, you have Clever Alcalá, a former Venezuelan major general who defected and was gathering a small army of dissidents in Colombia. But here's the twist, the part that makes this whole thing just incredible. Alcalá was also wanted by the US government on narcoterrorism charges. Yeah, a truly strange alliance.
So, you've got a mercenary and a defected general with a big plan. But to make any of it happen, they needed two things: money, and maybe more importantly, political legitimacy. This is where the story gets even murkier, and it all revolves around a secret contract that was supposed to make this whole audacious plot a reality.
Get a load of this number, $212.9 million. That was the staggering value of the so-called General Services Agreement that Goudreau signed with representatives of Juan Guaidó, who, you'll recall, was the Venezuelan opposition leader recognized by the U.S. The idea was to fund this massive contract with future oil sales, after Maduro was removed.
But, well, that grand vision fell apart almost immediately. Instead of millions, Goudreau got a single payment of just $50,000 for expenses. And get this, it came from a representative's personal account, not an official one. The trust between the Guaidó camp and Goudreau just evaporated, almost as soon as the ink was dry on that contract.
We considered the operation dead. That's a direct quote from J.J. Rendon, who was Guaidó's own strategist, and he said this after a final explosive argument with Goudreau. Now, the timing here is absolutely crucial. The official opposition backing had totally collapsed in November of 2019. That's a full 6 months before the raid was ever even launched.
So this is where it gets really, really strange. Even with the political backing gone and all the money dried up, Goudreau decides to press on. Why? Was it ego, desperation? Who knows? But whatever the reason, his plan was already falling apart at the seams, which is how it earned that mocking nickname, Bay of Piglets.
In the weeks right before the raid, it wasn't just one thing that went wrong. It was everything. It was like a total cascade of failure. Just look at this timeline. On March 23rd, a key shipment of their weapons gets seized in Colombia. Whoops. Then, just 3 days later, the U.S. Justice Department indicts one of the masterminds, Clever Alcalá, and the very next day, he surrenders to the DEA. So the plot is now officially leaderless. And if that wasn't enough, on May 1st, just 2 days before the launch, the Associated Press publishes this massive exposé on the entire far-fetched scheme. The whole world knew about it before the first boat even touched the water. It's just incredible.
Let's be clear, this was the worst-kept secret in Venezuela. The plan was completely infiltrated by Maduro's spies. Apparently, everybody knew about it, from other defectors to Colombian officials, and yeah, even the CIA were reportedly aware of these ramshackle training camps. So, on top of all that, it was chronically underfunded, and its main military leader was sitting in a U.S. jail before the first shot was even fired.
This quote from Nicolás Maduro just says it all, doesn't it? The Venezuelan government wasn't just aware of the plot, they were watching its every move. They knew the plan inside and out, which basically allowed them to lay a perfect trap.
So the totally predictable result came on May 3rd and 4th when the boats finally tried to make their landing, and they sailed right into an ambush. It was a total rout. The Maduro administration suffered 0 casualties. The invaders? They had 6 men killed and 91 captured. You can't even call it a battle. It was a foregone conclusion.
So, the fighting may have been over in a matter of hours, but the fallout? Well, that was just beginning. For the Maduro government, this embarrassing failure of a raid wasn't a problem at all. It was a political and propaganda gift, one they were more than happy to unwrap for the whole world to see.
Maduro's government acted fast. They put the captured Americans, Aaron Berry and Luke Denman, on state television. And in what were pretty clearly coerced confessions, they laid out all the plot's details. This was a massive propaganda coup from Maduro, presented as definitive proof of U.S. aggression.
Now, the U.S. government, for its part, flatly denied any involvement. The Secretary of State at the time, Mike Pompeo, gave this really blunt and almost dismissive statement, essentially saying, look, if we had been involved, it would have gone a whole lot differently, basically calling it too amateurish to be a real U.S. government job.
In the aftermath, everybody pointed fingers and had their own version of the truth. The Maduro government, of course, called it a U.S.-backed terrorist attack. The Guaido opposition claimed it was a false flag, an operation designed to fail just to make Maduro look like a victim. And then you have Jordan Goudreau, who insisted his freedom fighters were betrayed by the very opposition they were trying to help. So what's the takeaway from all this? First, a completely bizarre and amateurish plot to overthrow a government failed in the most predictable way possible. Second, it was just a textbook case of what not to do. It was plagued by infighting, had no money, and was totally infiltrated. Third, the spectacular failure handed Nicolás Maduro a huge propaganda win on a silver platter. And finally, and this is why this story really matters, it fractured the Venezuelan opposition and exposed the dangerous, chaotic world of private mercenaries, trying to conduct foreign policy, blurring the lines of accountability in international conflicts.
Which leaves us with this final question. I mean, all the evidence points to a really, really badly planned coup. But the failure was so complete and so perfectly exploited by Maduro that a lot of people still wonder if there was something more to it. Was it a genuine, if completely foolish, attempt at liberation, or was it something else entirely? That right there is the enduring mystery of the Bay of Biglet.